Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Katrina Ffrech and I'm the Chief Executive of StopWatch. I'd just like to thank Chris and Nathaniel for organising this wonderful event here in Suffolk, in Ipswich. I think it's very important that we get out of London and understand what's going on locally. So I'm just going to tell you a bit about the organisation first and then give you an overview of what's been going on in terms of the stop and search landscape. So StopWatch was formed nearly 10 years ago now, in 2010, and at that time stop and search was at about 1.5 million, so quite high numbers there, 1.5 million, and it was formed by a group of academics, lawyers, impacted communities that wanted to come together and address the problems. And actually we formed from a project. We weren't an organisation. We were kind of a pressure group dealing with a certain issue, and through doing that we realised actually it's much bigger than what we thought. The disproportionality was very high in terms of racial disproportionality. Also the disproportionality amongst young people being stopped continues to be high. So we thought, in order for us to tackle this, we're going to have to lobby the government but also do some social action. So we started to do some research around the area. So we're a research and action group, and then we also started to say we need to involve young people and empower them. So what's been going on since we formed? So in 2010 we formed, we got together and we started to produce research and reports and understanding what was happening in the community. And it was quite shocking to find that most people didn't understand the negative and detrimental impact that it was having on young people, and also not just in terms of their personal interaction with the police, but also what they then thought of the police afterwards, outside of the officer that had stopped them. So there was a real damage, reputational damage being done to the police force, and we felt that we needed to challenge the disproportionate use of stop and search and also find viable solutions. So producing research, we work bilaterally, working with policy makers such as the HMIC, that's Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, work with the Home Office, worked with the College of Policing, and then realised actually that's great, but we really need to be bottom down. We need to be on the ground. So we developed a youth group who goes into communities and speaks to young people and say, what do you want to do about this? And we've run several advocacy projects. So when I say advocacy projects, we'll go in, give a really small amount of funding, maybe a couple of £100, and say, guys, what do you want to do? What's an issue that's pressing for you? So what we found was vehicle stops has been a big issue. So the police stopping your vehicle if you're driving your car under the Traffic Road Act, I believe it's 163, section 163, they don't have to have a reason to stop your car. They can stop your car for any reason. And what we found was we wanted to be able to say, if you're going to be doing stops, we have to evidence whether it's fair and accountable police, and that's essentially our mission. So young people are given the opportunity to kind of get involved, have their voices heard, and contribute to the discussion in a way that actually hasn't happened before. You often just have people who are either not impacted by the issue talking about it, or if on the opposite side you find people being reeled out who may have a criminal record, who are not necessarily the most appropriate people to talk about those who are impacted. So we thought, let's find the middle ground and just get normal people involved. So we've had several pieces of research that we published over the years and developed our groups. StopWatch is a volunteer-led organisation. I've been in post for 1 year now, so I'm very new. And I'll tell you a bit about my background and how I kind of got involved in StopWatch in essence. But I want to lay out how we do business. So we have a legal aspect in terms of free lawyers that give their time freely to support people who may have been stopped and searched and actually wish to complain. So we've got a lovely bunch of lawyers. Then we have academics who actually give their time freely, you would have seen the reports outside, to produce some of those reports, and also support young people to develop research skills so they can do their own research projects. If you're a college student or somebody that wants to know what's going on in my area, we can support you to do that. And then we have I said the legal group, the policy group, and the youth group. The youth group is volunteer-led, and it's young people that want to get involved in campaigning and want to be supported to make a change in their communities. So what we found was having those free volunteer-led groups meant that we were able to pick up ideas. So when I come here today, I want to really listen to what you have to say, that I might find there's an area that we didn't know was happening. So as I speak, it will become much more evident what I mean. So having people on the ground, having people in policy areas, and having legal people to support that, we thought was a perfect combination for real social change. So what have we done since? Has anyone heard of a Section 60? Anyone know what a Section 60 is? So Hands in the air, wave your hands.
Police officers.
Yeah, I didn't see it, yeah, officers. So what we found was the rate of disproportionality in terms of use, and then racism was really about Section 60s being overused by the police. And this was a law that was introduced actually in the 1990s, and I believe the history of it was around football hooliganism, and it was designed actually when you believe that there's going to be an imminent threat of violence, that we put a blanket stop and search, I say ban, but a blanket power that will stop and search anybody in this area that we believe is carrying prohibited articles, particularly weapons. Now, what we found was, and this is the big issue with the Section 60, is that it's a bit like going fishing and you only want to catch tuna, but you have a big net, and what you start catching is the cod, the tuna, the shrimps. Everybody gets caught up in the net because actually you don't necessarily have the information or the intelligence to identify the people you're looking for. So under Section 60, everybody's a suspect, and that's unfortunate because what we then end up doing is demonising, when I say communities, in London we speak, it is the black community, because those are the people who have been told we have carried the knives and they're the victims of crime. But actually it's not just about the community, it's about age, it's about people in hoodies, it's about people that you don't think fit, and I say you as in the police, fit, that you don't think fit a certain way, so they're viewed with suspicion, and this is a big issue. So we started to advocate that actually Section 60 was very damaging for communities. An illegal challenge was brought by Black Murphy solicitors, and although the legal challenge was unsuccessful, what we saw was the police started to curb their behaviour. So over the years, I think it was like a challenge that took a couple of years, but every year Section 60s were being reduced, and actually I believe they've been like reduced to less than 98% now, although over the last 2 years in London, there's been a rise, and I've just read today in Merseyside, there's once again an increase in Section 60s because of imminent violence. Now what has changed between the 1990s and now is that actually the group that it was initially meant to kind of police no longer, I don't think, have many Section 60s being put in for football matches, and it's kind of evolved to police a certain community. So that's kind of a bit of background about legally what have we done to challenge it. So we've supported solicitors to bring about challenges and given written evidence to support it, and although it was, as I said, unsuccessful, we did see a change in terms of, since I've been in post, kind of fast forward the last 10 years, we've developed, about 4 years ago, we developed a Why Stop app. I should have brought some of, I didn't realise there'd be so many young people here, but Why Stop was developed by young people. As I said, we have a youth arm, and they said what we need to do is make the police accountable. And Why Stop is a app that you can record the police. It was very innovative, and I know now the police can record us, but it's actually very innovative at the time that allowed a young person to record the police. But in addition to recording the police, we gave them training around know your rights and de-escalation. So if you are in a situation with a police officer and it's getting quite tense, what can you do to de-escalate it? And I know we shouldn't have the onus on the young person to be able to mitigate behaviour, but actually the stop and search can be incredibly intimidating and potentially dangerous situation, for the officer but also for the young person, who I will say, and I say young person, it could be anybody, but for us, we recognise there's a harm with how young people engage with the police, and if we get that wrong as a young person, it's probably going to follow you throughout your life. So whilst I speak in the terms of young people, this is for the general the general public, but we recognise if we kind of get things right with young people, then we raise good adults, so we're not going to have issues in the future. So I digress.
Why Stop?
Why Stop, thank you. So Why Stop was developed, and the idea was that it gave young people an opportunity to record the police, but not just record the police, know their rights, understand how to de-escalate the situation. It's been very successful in terms of downloads. I feel that it's not been successful in terms of accountability, because what young people then do is record on their phone and then send it on Facebook. So actually I think there's a fantastic opportunity, maybe in Ipswich or Suffolk, to look at how adults who want to support young people or see a stop and search that's probably they're not sure about, use our app because it's a secure app to record that, and then we can investigate on your behalf. So that's how it's meant to work. But I think young people, they're in the moment, they just record and then it's kind of forgotten about. Whereas I think if you're an adult that wants to kind of look into becoming an independent observer of stop and search, this would be a really useful application for you to know that you're recording something, it's safely used, and there's an accountability mechanism in terms of you following up. So that's our Why Stop app, and I touch on it because I want you guys to know it's not just about the policy work, it's about how do we find viable solutions and how do we empower those people that are most impacted to feel like they can exercise their rights. So since I've been in post last May, We've had a lot going on in StopWatch. You'd have seen the gangs matrix report was outside. Really big issue, but not just for London alone, because I believe that what we're seeing is a morphing from the gangs matrix into this term county lines. And it'll be really interesting to hear with the police officers in the room today what the kind of strategy around county lines is, because it's branded as a buzzword, but I don't actually understand what it is, know in terms of performance management how it's being addressed, other than people saying we've got county lines so we need to do more stop and search, which is a really damaging rhetoric, because we haven't got any stats on what's actually happening, how are we addressing the problem. So it's really easy when the police or politicians, I'm not calling the police out, it's politicians as well, been very disappointed with the Home Office of recent, their stance on increasing stop and search. I have to say to you, it's nonsense. You, for me, can't increase the power that requires an individual officer at that time to have grounds to carry out a search. So I don't know how aware or not aware you are of stop and search. It's a bit like saying to traffic wardens, you need to go out today and give 10 tickets. How do you know you're going to find 10 infringements? So what we don't want officers doing is hands in your pockets for no reasons. What we want them to do is build relationships, and if they see behaviour which they believe warrants a stop and search, to do that. But it shouldn't be, all right, everyone today go out there and put hands in pockets, because actually it's not productive. It's counterintuitive to building community relations, and actually it doesn't produce better stop and searches. We see that in the numbers. 7 times out of 10 nothing is found in a stop and search. So if you're just going to have hands in pockets, my point is actually you could probably be doing something else in that policing time, and we have to look at it in terms of resources about what the police can do practically. I feel that stop and search is continually being used because it's easy, it's something to be seen, but actually we don't want policing to be seen, we want it to be fair, effective and accountable, and if that means a lot more goes on that's unseen but we get a much safer community, then that's fine. So over the last year we produced the Gangs Matrix report, which gave a voice to those people who were on the matrix and actually hadn't committed a criminal offence, had only been on there, maybe they had a fight at school or had an argument and had been deemed and classified as being dangerous individuals, and as a consequence of that young people have lost their homes, we've had children put in care, we've had young people not attend education, we've had young people not be able to take up jobs, all because they're on the gangs matrix. And part of the issue with this gangs matrix is you don't have to have committed a criminal offence to be on there. Now I'm going to let that sink in. You do not have to have committed a criminal offence to be on there. But yet the level of policing that you will receive in London, and I speak about London, but this does happen in other places across the country, is a hyper sense of policing that you really can't live your daily life without experiencing the police in some shape or form. The MOPAC, and that's the Mayor's Office recent review, said that whilst you're on the matrix, I believe you're 2 to 3 times more likely to be stopped and searched. And that was actually why we did the piece of research, and speaking to young people, realised they were saying, I'm getting stopped quite a lot and I'm not really sure why, and it was because they were on this database and didn't know that they were on the database, don't know how to get off, didn't know you were on it, but actually receiving really heavy-handed policing. And whilst it's designed to be a tool that's meant to help you desist from crime, actually it's probably causing you to be a bit more criminal, because you won't be able to get a job, you're losing all your housing, you're not able to get into education. So rather than helping people, actually we found it's been a big blocker. So we've been advocating for it to be dismantled, and it's not because we want to hug criminals and we want everybody running freely. We want fair, effective and accountable policing. Actually that tool isn't fair, it's not effective and it's not accountable, and that's not just us saying it, it's now the Information Commissioner's Office. I won't touch on the Colour of Injustice report because Dr. Mike Shine is here to talk about that, but I will say that what we've been uncovering as we speak to people is the issues around police using handcuffs in a stop and search, even though when they're stopping you, it's not for a violent offence. So it's very confusing that if you're going to approach someone that 7 times out of 10, not going to have anything on them illegal, but just put them in handcuffs to be safe, very demeaning, very demoralising, and also scares young people about the power imbalance between them and the police. So what we've said is, if you need to use handcuffs, then by all means you need to use them, but from what I've witnessed on the body-worn video, I'll just put it out there, I used to chair the Pan London Forum, which is all 32 London boroughs, the Stop and Search Scrutiny Group, so I'm very much aware of what goes on the ground. I watched the body-worn video, I reviewed the written ground, so I have seen kind of some of the things that have been going on. It's very incredibly worrying. So handcuffs, big issue. Smell of cannabis being used as grounds alone. major big issue. And what we found actually is when you use your nose as kind of being your detective, it's rarely wrong. As in, you don't find it, you're less likely to find cannabis when you're just using cannabis as grounds alone. So we're looking to form a legal challenge against this, because we recognise that. I'll give you an example. One of the grounds I saw on a stop and search form was a person had the appearance of a Class A drug user. And I said, are we talking Peaches Geldof, or some person that just drinks under the bridge? And I mean, I'm flippant with that, because it's not an appropriate reason to stop someone because they had an appearance of a Class A drug user. Another incident was 2 young black boys in a park, smell of cannabis, so they weren't seen smoking. I think there's a difference if you see someone doing something and you think you smell something. The young man was searched, officer went in his bag, thought a very small amount of cannabis, took him back to college because he was under 18, so couldn't give him a cannabis warning as they would have done, had to inform somebody. You know, that young man was then kicked out of college because he was deemed to have brought into disrepute. So that was seen by the police as being a positive outcome. For me as the community member, there was nothing positive in that. There should be a kind of break that the police can give someone advice or guidance without then having to take them back to school and ruin their education. So the issue about smell of cannabis, handcuffs, and then body-worn video and police technology, very big areas. We've seen cuts to the police resources, but actually investments in technologies such as predictive policing, also fingerprint scanners. So if you're stopped and searched, you may be asked to verify your identity by giving your fingerprint on a scanner, and if you don't give your fingerprint on the scanner, you can be taken back to the station. And I say these things because during a stop and search encounter, for all intents and purposes, you're an innocent person. So it's really important that we manage liberty and protection and security, because if we go either way, we can really not turn into anarchy, but be living in a kind of Orwellian state without even realising it. We're seeing body-worn video being used, but actually nobody's being told they only have 31 days to get that footage, and then it's deleted. So we've introduced technologies that actually could increase accountability or assist with you know, improving accountability, but the public aren't being aware of how they access that information. We've also, and behind that is the facial recognition stuff. So if I decide in a stop and search I don't want to give you my name, which is my legal right, you might just have my face anyway, which is, that's all, unless you've got loads of money to have a facial reconstruction, I kind of think your face is stuck with you your whole life. So understanding as we go along, there's introductions to police and technology that are going to impact on us, and most of us are going about our daily lives not knowing anything about this, but that's a young person's face, under 18, now recorded, chosen not to give your name. How's that information going to be stored? Is it going to be triangulated on another database? These are all unknown questions, but in speaking to young people, understanding some of the nuances about what's going on in these interactions. We've also got digital mobile phone stops. So I'm going to wrap up in 4 minutes. But this is when the police are stopping you and then seeing you've got a mobile phone, possibly just the one, and saying, actually, I think your phone's stolen. I want to go in it and make sure that it's your phone. And they will take the IMEI number. And after you have an IMEI number, you can kind of, in a sense, track the phone. So here we are with a situation where you were stopped for the smell of cannabis, and now you think my phone's stolen. So I have to give you my details, and if I don't, I'm going to be, this person had nothing on their persons. So really worrying matters, and on top of that, I'm going to kind of round up with obstructions and a sort of PC. You get young people who are very annoyed because they've been stopped several times, now act out, or the situation is, you know, escalated, being arrested for a sort of a PC or a public order offence. And once you've assaulted a PC, it kind of doesn't make you a very nice person for the rest of society. So imagine going for a job with an assault of a PC. So that's why it's really important that we develop the youth group, and we continue to develop our youth group that can engage with young people about how to not sometimes, and the truth is, rise to the bait. That's the truth. I'm not saying all police officers are like that, but there are some that, instead of being professional and courteous, a bit like what you've been up to today, nicked anything today. You know, there's not a kind of positive relationship being built that you feel, this is someone I trust, this is someone that if I was in any sort of endangerment, I would go to. And if you don't have that relationship with the police, it's not surprising that we'll have youth violence and some of the other issues. So while stop and search for many, it's irrelevant to their life if they're not young black or young white and living in a poor area, actually it does impact on your life, because those people won't get the jobs. There'll be really serious societal issues if we keep saying, well, it's not really happening to me, so I'm going to turn a blind eye. So that's a bit about what StopWatch is doing. I hope I've kind of left you with a flavour for our work and some of the areas that are of concern, and I'm hoping that today is, for me, really understanding what the issues are outside of London, how we can support you, whether that's by coming and sharing our resources, there's some outside, having conversations and listening, helping write letters to your local politicians or community safety people or police officers about actually mediating about what can be done in Suffolk. And I have to say, the issue about racial disproportionality, it's not a myth. It exists, and the sooner we discuss it and recognise that there's several things. There's institutional racism, there's proactive policing, there's people living in poor areas where crime is a problem, and how do we address crime? It's by having a police presence. I'd say to you, we address crime by putting in some intervention and prevention techniques that enable people to be diverted away from bad behaviour, but that involves councils having money and resources to give children an alternative to kind of not be loitering or seen to be loitering. So these are not just the policing questions, and I throw that out there because the police won't be able to fix everything, but actually as a society and with some partnership working, we probably could start to foster better community relations, but it does involve, for non-BAME people, a bit of uncomfortableness, and that's fine, because being uncomfortable we learn, it's just a learning process. But if you want to stay comfortable, you're going to stay with another 20 years after Macpherson of racial disproportionality and nothing being done. Let's open our ears, open our minds, and come together and find a proper solution for this. Thank you.